because I think everyone wants to create and not consume, and it's really difficult to do that when you don't have necessarily the skills, the time, life is hectic, etc. I think many of you have seen the evolution of this technology over the last year through amazing developers like our lead generative media developer, Catherine Krausen, the kind of Dalle team who have joined us, and you see that in things like Looking Glass and others. The amazing Disco Diffusion team, who are now kind of some of them with us, Majesty Diffusion and others. These collab notebooks that have gone around in this kind of underground movement almost, that has led to increasingly amazing art, from the VQGAN to kind of the diffusion type things. I really hope that this kind of goes further, because I think these technologies and tools are now at the point where they're fast enough, good enough, and you'll soon see cheap enough that, again, anyone, anywhere in the world can actually experience it. We're putting what you're going to be using in, hopefully, the next few minutes. The final checks are being put on the bot and making sure that it's all ready to go. I'll come to that in a second. That will be also used by refugees in refugee camps, where we have our education tablets, where we've got more information coming soon. It'll be used by people from Kazakhstan to India, where we've got our partnerships to represent local cultures, as well as, some more famous brands where there'll be customized versions of this. I think everyone, again, just wants to be able to use it, and we hope that by going the open source route, it won't just be that you have to use and understand what a certain entity or group of individuals wants you to, but you can use this as the building blocks for your own experiences, your own extensions, and just a wave of creativity that lets us unify as a global community. I think that's really special, because I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before. So I'd like to thank all of you for kind of coming in and kind of joining the beta. We will expand it as fast as possible. We're not kind of waiting around here. We will release the model as soon as possible as well. It's been a very complicated process, and kind of we'll give some more background soon. I know, again, we're not very well known, and that's deliberately so, because we've just been diligently building. And I'd like to just introduce Bill, who's kind of joining me on the stage. Bill, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, and thanks for all the things you just said, because I think the philosophy, the guiding philosophy that we've all shared, I think is really strong and really, I think, a positive message, and I think we all share it. So my name's William Cusick. I go by Bill. I've been working with Stable Diffusion for a month now, and it is really the most pliable, creative tool I have ever used. I'm a experienced filmmaker and animator, editor, and I've been working with AI generative tools now for about a year. And I have to say, Stable Diffusion is unlike the other tools. It's not a replacement, I should say. It's an additional, right? There's another option now. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to work with it, how to think about working with it, and I really want to encourage folks, when you start to experiment, to really look at how this can be used as a creative tool, as an expressive tool, and also for those of you in the Discord here who are designers, how this might work as a design tool, and how this might work as a storytelling tool. I think there's a lot of potential, and we're working on ways of evolving these tools to serve creative storytellers of all kinds. So
I think everyone is creative, right? I think this is part of the thing. These new technologies blur the lines between humans and computers. Before I kind of get on that, I know you're all kind of eager and excited for when the bot arrives as kind of stage one of this beta, before we get on to other things such as the website with in-painting and a whole host of other features, some of which we might tease today. Effectively, the kind of the status is right now is that it's being introduced into the channels. The final checks are literally being done by the team. And then, as I mentioned in announcements, please do read the announcement and read it thoroughly, especially because, like I said, I don't want anyone here to make any prompts or outputs that would make their mum sad. Please don't do that. We're our community here. And then the early adopters will get the initial. So this is the people that were in the Discord originally, and that will allow us to test. You'll be able to do one prompt a minute initially. Eventually, we will get rid of that restriction completely, probably, hopefully, within a day or so, and you'll be able to create as many as you want. You can create different images and batches of images. You can adjust them different resolutions. You can do things like seeding, which Bill will discuss. And again, we're trying to give more and more tools, and you'll see the bot evolve, which will give you more and more ability to kind of express yourself. However, I think that, these models, a lot of people view them as one-shot kind of models, when in fact they're just one part of the processes that will be built. Because what we're really doing is expecting a computer to take a bunch of pixels, throw it at the screen, and it sticks. And it's amazing and quite frankly miraculous that this happens at all. I think that as the kind of time progresses and as the ecosystem builds, we will use it in various ways to communicate and be creative. So I think there's this concept of creatives. Everyone is creative. It's just that some people don't know how to communicate themselves. So, we've all kind of faced that difficulty. And again, I think this can really break down the barriers to that. I'm going to answer some kind of questions that I've seen frequently asked around this. The model will be released with the code as MIT. The weights will be released under the Apache license. Both of these are permissive, commercially oriented, available licenses, so you can basically do what you want. The Apache license means that you should probably say thank you. Just give some attribution to the developers that have done a lot of hard work around this. The dataset that was used to train this particular model was Lion 5B. That's a community that we support, and we will continue to support and accelerate. We are behind many of these open source communities, and we're going to grow them even bigger. And that's 5.6 billion images, 250 terabytes of data that we've collated to try and address that data gap there. So there's some amazing images in there, some not so amazing images. It is humanity, but we figured out how to create custom data sets from that. In fact, the first instances of Stable Diffusion, the initial alpha testers rated image outputs from this, and it created what's known as an aesthetic dataset, a dataset of images that resonated. And that was used to filter down the 5 billion to 600 million images that led to the model that you see today. And I think this concept of resonance is interesting, because I know some of you on this call will be technical, some of you on this call will not be technical. Everyone wants to understand what is going on under the hood. And so I thought I'd take a few minutes, if that's okay, to discuss that. Classical artificial intelligence took loads of data, and then it tried to figure out who you were and what you wanted so it could capture your attention and serve you ads. This was the business model of Web 2 and all the big tech majors. And, I think I was having a discussion with someone on the Discord today who was asked if this would be free. If it's free, it means that you are the product, effectively. And that's the generation that we've come from. And we've all experienced it and seen the effects of these big tech companies. So, for example, Facebook had an experiment about 8 years ago, where they said, I wonder if we take 600,000 of our users and we show half of them sadder things, because they track everything you post and your friends post, even the things you don't actually hit return on, will it make them post sadder things? If you see the sadder things, will you post sadder things? And so they did that for 300,000 people. They deliberately made them sadder. And then saw if they post sadder things so they could serve them ads to make them happier, or at least serve that gap in their souls, effectively. Big tech companies don't mean to do that. It's just the way that they're oriented, because they're trying to capture your attention. And emotions and anger and outrage and other deep ones are the ways that they kind of do that. So that was the classical artificial intelligence. It was extending all this data to figure out who you are. What Stable Diffusion is, and some of you may have seen Dalle 2 and others, is a new type of model. This type of model thinks more like a human brain. So like right now you're listening to my voice, and I hope it's not too boring. My apologies if it is. I'll try not to kind of do this more. But again, you're the first wave that will really experience this at scale, which is attention. So maybe you're paying attention to when I'm speaking, maybe you're not. You'll be paying attention to these images. What happens is that you take 250,000 gigabytes of images and you compress it down to X gigabytes. We'll share the details soon, but it's surprisingly small. What you do in that process is you pay attention to the images and the labels and what connects them. So as you type in Boris Johnson as Ant-Man, or as you type in A Beautiful Day on Mars by Monet, it understands what each of these words are with relation to the pixels that are there, and it compresses it into what's known as a neural network. The layers that it compresses, you may have seen us mention this, are called latent spaces. So it's almost like the hidden layers of connectivity between things. And that's why you will have seen on the Stable Diffusion tag, many of these images resonate, And we hope that you create images that resonate even more with people, because that is how you communicate. This is, again, something I think quite profound, and it extends our ability to communicate as a species, but also it's a lot of fun. Because you may have seen some of the previous image models weren't quite there, because they were kind of a bit stilted. I mean, in fact, when I look at Dalle 2 prompts, I kind of view it as the McDonald's of image generation. It's very nice and it's very structured, but it kind of feels like, stock image photos / amazing portraits. Like their face model is absolutely fantastic close up. Also, it seems like a master chalk artist has been the one kind of doing this, which I think is deliberate so that they can tell what's a Dalle image or not, because they're a bit scared, because this technology is powerful. Our viewpoint is that this technology should be available for all, and the benefits far outweigh the potential harms, especially because the community can work out situations and solutions to the bad actors that might come along to use it. So we trust you all, and again, I hope that you all repay our trust rather than being paternalistic and believing that we know better. So that's kind of an overview of the technology, where it is. The model will come out. It will be available in all your favorite services because we are doing a permissive license. From Midjourney to Night Cafe to Wombo, we've had wonderful conversations with all of them and supported as we can, and there'll be new ones. And maybe some of you here will create new experiences and things that can reach millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. So I think kind of with that, I'd like to hand over to Bill, who will explain, unfortunately we can't do video here, how it kind of works and talk about some of the features so you can understand them better as they hit. There will be written guides and videos associated with this as well. Bill, over to you.
Excellent, thank you. The way this works is at its core, text to image, right? So I'm going to not presume that everyone here has done it. I'm not going to presume anything. So starting from a really basic level, for those of you who've not used any of these tools before, there's a couple different ways to approach it. In my experience, I generally have two ways I approach it. I have no idea what I want, and other times I know exactly what I want. And when I don't know what I want, I will start with just a simple thing to get the prompt going. And so you want to start when you're prompting, start with a subject. And what I've found with all these different tools, is there is a little bit of it's chance. So part of the experience is prompting and getting back one of an infinite number of potential responses. So one of the things I've been working on putting together is a short little sequence where we see the evolution of a prompt. And starting with something as simple as clouds is where I want to start. So we made a little chat thread in the Discord. It's called Stage Presentation. And so if you go to Stage Presentation, you can watch, but you can't type, which is how I'm going to be able to show you some sort of basic example. Now, at a very basic level, and now it's going to get to the advanced settings as well, and we'll cover that. But I want to just make sure that all, looks like 1,300 folks in here are at least clear on the basics, and then we'll get into the more advanced settings. Now, in the Stage Presentation chat, you should be able to see it. The thing I'm going to type in here is the basic, the only code snippet everybody needs to use is this prompt of !dream. So when you prompt our bot, you're going to start with !dream. Because after all, life's a dream. Thanks for all the, okay, good to see people are responding. Excellent. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to know is you use !dream. From there, let's say we start with !dream and we say clouds, right? So I say !dream and I do clouds. What I get returned is this. Now, what you're doing at a basic level is like, you're essentially sending a text message to a server, and the server is sending you back. And I had a friend ask me recently, a brilliant production designer, when I was losing my mind over Stable Diffusion. He asked me, well, what is this thing? Is it a search engine? And I immediately said, no, it's a creation engine. Instead of you're not Googling for an image, you're making the thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I had a discussion, I did a demonstration this week, and they were just thoroughly unimpressed. And it was like, why are you so unimpressed? This is like really hard work. We've put in thousands of hours. And they're like, this is a really slow search engine. Like what's that
Yeah.
about? Like because fortunately, we've kind of hit photorealism in a lot of things. And what's about a Tesla Roadster on Mars? I mean, of course, it's just a search engine picture of that, right? But yeah, you said
It was
something.
it was hard. It was hard to explain that. It's a hard concept to wrap your head around, and it's a hard concept for folks to really appreciate. Go on.
Yeah, well, that's why I think you need to show examples of Boris Johnson as Ant-Man, right? Just go out there. That's what you do when you show people.
Yeah, so I actually had the chance to demo this with some friends the other day in person and get to sort of understand how personal the experience is of what's happening here. And I'm sure lots of folks here have probably had many conversations about all this, and it's interesting because it goes from being a conversation where you're sending text messages to the bot to really where you're having a conversation with your unconscious mind, but we'll get there. So we're starting with that basic prompt, right, of like of just dream clouds, and then you can start to add modifiers. And I think this is what happens is I find that once I get my first response, I will start to expand it. So I could say something like peaceful clouds. Right now what you're doing is you're creating connections and you're starting to evolve what is you're actually sort of in some ways narrowing what the data set is that it's pulling from to create the image, but it's also in some ways opening up the possibilities. So if I change this to peaceful clouds, right, the change is very subtle. So we're going to get to more advanced changes as we go. But I just want to make sure everyone is clear on the really basic stuff when you're working with this.
I think the mothership bot is being pushed to the channel right now, so that's why it's taking a little bit of time. It's just on its way. Oh, there we go.
No, I'm doing it manually. So this right now, I'm showing everybody. This is a prepared sequence that is going to be animated. So I just want to show folks some basic evolution, right? Because again, there's probably a couple people here who've never done it, right?
Yeah, so the mothership bod is actually being pushed. But yeah, kind of go through this, and then we'll show more live examples of this shortly. Okay.
Brilliant. All right. So now, folks, when you're prompting and you're modifying, right? There's a lot of conversations around using artist names and using things like trending on ArtStation and a lot of feelings. Like this is a huge thing, right? There's a lot of feelings, and I think I've reached the other side of my feelings in this partly through using the tool and understanding how it's operating, and understanding that using modifiers like matte painting and concept art is actually going to give me a result that is about the aesthetic of the way that the image is put together, like on a basic level. So someone asked me the other day, like, why are we dropping in trending on ArtStation? Why does that help? And in a lot of ways, it sort of adds like coherence to the final image, and it will understand a sort of aesthetic data set and the output, and help in a way that it's not. I guess there's a lot of philosophical debates about it, and I just don't think it's philosophical. I think it's just purely aesthetic. So if I were to add matte painting to this prompt, right? So the look of the cloud suddenly evolves, and we start to get more references that are pulled from actual traditional matte paintings, right? So what I'm also trying to give folks are some tricks, right? Matte painting and concept art are two really great ways to modify landscapes and to modify when you're working with interiors and so on. Now, the thing that I want to get to now is sort of the next step. Now, if we want to take this and say, okay, this is cool, I like your puffy clouds, but let's actually make them widescreen. Let's make them awesome. So let's add an aspect ratio. This is something that folks who've been using, I think, Midjourney probably are familiar with. Like they have a system. We've got this thing where you can type in, dash dash. It's got to make sure it's not an M dash. The iPhones like to turn their dash dash into an M dash. So make sure if you're looking at that.
We've reduced it to single dash now. Again,
Brilliant.
On the bot up to the last. By the way, if anyone is just waiting for the bot to be up, we will at you as a user group when the bot is up and available. So, don't worry about it. Like this call is to take you kind of through some of the factors and features, but don't feel that you have to be kind of on it if you're just waiting to use the bot. I do think it will be useful though, because, it's one thing just throwing stuff at a wall. It's another thing being taken through it.
So this is the dream, peaceful, puffy clouds, matte painting, concept art, throwing in the modifier of 4K, and giving it the instruction to have a width of 1280 pixels. Now, the pixel width can move in steps of 32 pixels. So so I'll put this in the chat here, but so I'll say note aspect ratio. You can adjust height as well, so it's dash height. So you can do increments of 32. So this will help folks who are trying to get widescreen, and we can go pretty extreme widescreen and pretty extreme portrait as well.
We get to 2048 on those sides as well. I should also mention that we are currently training a series of upscalers, which should hopefully be state of the art. So for you guys that want to go ultra super resolution, that will be coming soon.
Okay, so now here's the thing I want to make sure everybody sees. Now this is sort of the important reference here, is this concept of how it actually happens within Discord, and what you're going to see and so on. So you're going to send this message of dream the prompt, and you're going to get a mention. Now the mentions are, for those who haven't used Discord, the mentions are essentially the @ and your user handle, and those are going to be returned with the image every time. And if you click on that picture, that screenshot, what you're going to see is that what we give back every time, what the bot gives back every time, is the random seed, which is the seed for the initial noise for the diffusion. So, but that seed number is sent back to you. So if you love the composition, guess what? You can now lock your composition. This is beautiful. So there's a fantastic series of tweets I recommend folks check out that Sir AI has been posting, and Tom Likes Robots have been sharing some interesting studies of how to use the seed as a tool in your work. Now, one thing to note is that when you adjust the aspect ratio, it does affect the return time. So you'll notice that like the actual execution time can sometimes take longer if you make the picture a lot bigger naturally. Okay, so aspect ratios are the first thing. We just talked about seeds, and the way you would actually lock the seed is similar to the way you lock the aspect ratio. Is you put the dash seed, and then from this you do have to do a little bit of actual copy, but if you remember the seed number, it's just 123 123. I'm great at passwords, but so what that does is it gives you that exact composition, and now you could tweak words within it and tweak word modifiers. And so if you want to see some of that at work, follow Sure AI, absolutely brilliant series of studies happening there. So there's a couple other modifiers we should know about. So I'm just going to put these in my chat here. So there's aspect, right? There are seeds. There are steps. There's a CFG scale. There are batches. Batches is exciting. There are errors. And like I mentioned before, there are mentions. Okay. So these are some really basic things, and they may change. We're not promising anything. So by request of our developers, we can't promise anything, but we're going to do our best to deliver as much as possible.
You can imagine that some of the elements like init images and others we will kind of phase in here. I think something well to kind of bear in mind, this is the first of 5 models that we are training right now of different types, shapes, sizes, and quality. This is our smallest model, actually, of all of those. So we're really trying to cover the gamut, so you have all the tools that you need there. This server will have access to many of these models, as well as our audio, video, and 3D models that we'll be coming up with. Why? Because we want to have that Ready Player One holodeck experience minus the microtransactions, right? So I think that, this bot, we are not kind of competitors. This is not what we want to do. I have no idea how Midjourney did it. Fantastic congratulations to David and others. This is literally just meant to be test servers. We are deep tech guys. We are kind of prosumer, kind of UI UX guys, So please kind of bear with us as we continue to upgrade this bot, because we're working as hard as we can. Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so the list here of aspect, seed, steps, CFG scale, batches, errors. Okay, so let me. I talked about aspect and seed, and obviously it's the dash before. Now, same thing with batches. Now, the thing with batches is it's actually a different a different
So with
modifier.
yeah,
Just I'm
batches
just pulling up. Yep.
different modifiers. So kind of you use dash n, and then we have the ability to do between 1 and 9 images in one batch with variant seeds when you're trying to identify styles that you then want to iterate upon. Is that what you're referring to, Bill?
Yep. So what I'm putting here in the chat is for batches, you're going to use -n and then the number. So it'll be, you'll do 2, and I'll put in parentheses up to 9. So, but that's the phrase for folks to know. And then if you want your batched images to come out individually, so if you use the batches, right, it's going to batch it and give you a block of images, right? Now, what you can do is you can break them into individual returns with individual mentions for you. So to make a batch, print in individual pictures or individual images rather. You're going to use
Dash I.
-I, exactly. Great, and that is in the chat. Now, so just so to be clear, so when you use it without using -I, you get a grid, and when you use -I, you will get a string. So I put that into the stage presentation as well, into the chat, so folks can see that. Now errors are really important, and this is part of why everybody here is a beta tester, and if you haven't used stuff that breaks, welcome to the party. It's a great. That's the point of this. Like, we want to make it better. So read the error messages. Like, if you put in a prompt and it comes back and it says, "Sorry, mechanical reproductions, there was a problem," I have to read what the problem was, and it helps because usually it's my own fault, and it sometimes has to do with an apostrophe or quotation marks or a symbol I accidentally didn't know, or a space. So read your error messages, okay? Read your error messages. We beg of you. It will help you.
Yeah, I think we also have kind of community help for a lot of these things. Again, there's a lot of subtlety here that isn't there in some of the other ones, and we're exposing a lot more stuff that goes on under the hood. So when you use Dalle 2 and you have 4 different images or Midjourney and kind of other things, there are kind of expert features that you can dig into, but this is a lot more deterministic than others. You can actually recreate your images as if you want versus having that randomness element in there. I think this is kind of a vision of the future because sometimes you just want to be creative, right? And you love to roll the dice and it's fun. And sometimes you know exactly what you want to do. And so this is where things like the in-painting that you might have seen from Gene and kind of others, I'll kind of add a link to that if you haven't seen it, really become important. So the ability to change certain parts of a picture, to describe your changes. These are all things that we have in the kind of works. But even if we don't have them, people will create them. And I think that's going to be very important there. So there is, as Bill said, this exploration phase where you're exploring and you're iterating on a theme. And there's that bit then when you find the seed that you want, like the foundation from which these images build, you start altering it and adjusting it until you get just what you want. And I think that, again, is a super powerful thing that we haven't really seen in other kind of image things. And it's only possible because of the speed and lightweight nature of Stable Diffusion, because you can iterate so quickly around that. And this brings us maybe on to some of the other things. Bill, should we talk about stepping now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think talking about stepping is important for sure. So there's a couple other concepts to think about, and it has to do with the I like to think of it in aesthetic terms, right? I like to think of it in terms of how is it going to affect the output. So when we think about how steps work and how CFG scale works, I've been experimenting with it all week and looking at how I can use it to get more effective images on one side of the scale, sometimes on the other, and how they interact. I've been finding with that when I work with steps, sometimes fewer steps are they can produce a profoundly more beautiful image, right? There was some misinformation at some point. I think someone made a YouTube video and said more steps, more detail, and something like that, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, but if we kind of take a step back,
Yeah.
what else? The way that these image generators work is, you know, in those CSI like shows where you see that enhance, enhance, enhance thing. That's what we're actually doing here. They're called diffusion models for a reason, because what they do is they kind of take. Well, there's a whole much reason behind that. But basically, when you start with a seed or an initial image, and again, initial images will come soon, just like you see in other places. What you do is kind of you do that enhance process where you adjust it towards that latent space, the hidden meanings behind each of the words. And what steps are the number of steps and the number of enhancing steps you take. So if you have 100 of them, you know that you have 100 and it takes this intermediate point and adjusts and adjusts and adjusts and adjusts and adjusts. If you have 10, then you've only got 10 steps to try and get to that end point. So the calculations and the mathematics that go on are very different. As Bill said, sometimes if you have 1,000 steps, you won't get a better image than if you have 100 steps. But you do get faster if you go lower on these, and sometimes you can see this coherence, right? So think about steps as the number of checks that you have on the way to your image being great. You might need 50, and 50 is kind of a pretty standard number with some of the more advanced stepping technology that we have, but you certainly won't need 1,000. And sometimes you only need 20, right?
Exactly. And I was working with a colleague the other day and sharing tests, and actually they did some tests with lower step counts, and the return time is lightning fast. I mean, depending on the content, it can be really effective. So that's a great explanation. Thanks for clarifying it. And I put that into the stage presentation chat for folks with steps. So the modifier input is just dash steps, and it'll be you'll have, I believe it is 10 our minimum. That's what I think it is.
Put 5 there.
We'll say we can go as low as 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think 5 is the minimum, 50 is the maximum. We've introduced new stepping technology. I think we'll create an expert section with the academic papers for those of you who want to understand kind of this, whereby rather than doing classically, if you've used any of these notebooks over the last year, you use DDIM or DDPM. These are big acronyms. I'm not going to go into it. You usually need 100 to 250 steps. We've got it down to 40 to 50 now, but sometimes you can get amazing results from 25, but you can definitely get coherence from 5 to 10. Why is coherence important? It's because when you do these massive resolution images, what you'll see is that sometimes you get repeated heads, you get like repeated landscapes and things like that, because what you're actually using now is the raw bot, the raw model. When you use Dalle, it filters your prompts. So if you enter sumo wrestler, it randomly adds like ethnicities and genders. So you might get a Asian, Indian female sumo wrestler. You know, that's part of the woke filter, kind of whatever. That's fine, you know. When you use something like Midjourney, it uses some of these more common models, but they've done a fantastic job in the actual guidance of it. So they use another model called a clip model to guide it, and they've had loads of optimizations to give it that really distinctive Midjourney feel as well. You can tell when an image is Midjourney, and they look, I think, really nice. This doesn't have any of that. This is raw input and output, so that's why sometimes it paints multiple things in an image. If you use on larger resolution things, because they're much slower, because it has to paint a lot more pixels, 5 or 10 steps, and you do a batch, you can see which ones are more coherent, and then you can take that seed and you can let it run for 50 steps. And then that will be far more likely to give you a great output than if you're just randomly throwing stuff at a wall. Right, Bill?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and we've got the mothership live in the stage presentation chat, so I can demonstrate exactly that with step variations, and folks can see a little bit of those adjustments. Yeah, that's great. And I agree also. I love how Midjourney looks. I'm a huge fan, obviously, if anyone has seen any of the work I've done for the past few months as well. So, okay, so I will run a quick sequence now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the seed random. So, because if you run a sequence and everything is the same, right, and there's not a random seed, you're gonna print the same image over and over, and you're just gonna waste your time. that's not what we're here to do. So if you want to run a batch and kind of get some ideas, let's say I want a batch of some puffy clouds, and I'm going to leave them at, I like this phone resolution here. That's a little tall, but make it 768. And then what I'll do is I'll run a batch. I'm going to do n, and I will batch 9 images, and then I will set them to be individual, if that's okay. And let's see how that goes.
Yeah, so you can kind of see how you're concatenating these things here. As we kind of roll this out, you will have the ability, again, we can't say when, to do kind of DMs, to do threading and other things, but you should learn from how kind of some of these experts are kind of doing it, because I think, again, the community angle is very interesting for the early stages of beta. Again, this is not meant to be this particular thing, a commercial service or anything like that. We really want to learn and explore how these things work, because this model is so new and unique. So you can kind of see there as well here. He started at S7555. That's the seed number. So each seed number is a unique random pattern, as it were. And when you do the n iterations, it will basically do a certain number of random things around that. And you'll be able to see that it actually makes a list of all of the seed numbers for each of the images so you can track them. Let's see, what did you put for the steps here? Oh, this is going to take a while because you didn't do the low steps. So you did 9.
I'll have to default. Yep.
Yeah,
I should
exactly.
have dropped it to 5 steps. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, I mean, these things queue up, right? Because again, when you're doing large resolutions, it requires a lot more processing power. The default resolution of this generator is 512 by 512. We have significantly higher models coming at higher resolutions. In fact, Catherine's done oh, here we go. Kind of, we've got it coming out. You can see how it's done 9 in a row now, right? And you can see at the top there on the actual thing where they're given the seeds for each individual image. We will eventually upgrade and give you buttons so that you can pick the images out quicker and readjust them, etc. But for now, copy and paste a little bit, right? So I was kind of saying this is a 512 by 512 model. So that will be the resolution that it operates fastest at. Anything deviating from that will use more memory or less memory if you go below, and will be a little bit slower. So just kind of bear that in mind. Models of other resolutions will be coming. To put this in context, something like a Midjourney is a 256 model, that then you have the upscaler that goes up to 1024. And Dalle 2 actually starts off at 64 by 64, so really tiny. And then it uses a really nice initial upscaler to take it to 256, and then I think a kind of odd, the chalky upscaler with very low steps, again remember that steps thing, to take it to 1024. Let's see, Bob.
This is great. Yeah. So if you look into the stage presentation, folks, you're going to see one of our brilliant developers, Chia, is in there dropping some advice as well about how we can do the grid we've been talking about. And you'll see there's, as we said earlier, you can either use dash or just dash. But the key is to know what they are. So N is the reference to the quantity. S will be the reference to steps, but you can also just spell them out.
Yeah, also the case is important. Lowercase versus uppercase is important.
Brilliant. Yes, absolutely. So now, folks, if everyone looks in those grids, now you can see exactly as Ahmad just said, right? You see the seed numbers, right? If you look into the chat, you'll see a seed number, and the way the seed numbers go, I'm going to put this in here so that folks can see, like seed numbers are listed. It goes left to right and top to bottom. So you're going 1, 2, 3 across the top, 4, 5, 6 across the middle, 7, 8, 9 across the bottom. Oops. Sorry, I'm going to fix this real quick in the chat. Let me delete this real quick.
We should do a prettier one, right? Maybe we should do, I don't know.
I've done a few. You go ahead and drop one in. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, why not? Let's do.
Yeah, it's fun.
And 6, right? One of the models that it's maybe been overtrained on, shall we say. So I think that this is the thing. You'll be using multiple kind of image things here. You'll be using these grids and then you'll be kind of honing down. Actually, I should have done low steps, because you'll see if you do low steps, I don't know, my classical Robin Williams as like a minus. There we go. What do you all think of that? Pretty good, eh? And then you can take and you can make them bigger. Or like, for example, I don't know, everyone react with an emoji. Do you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Which one's your favorite? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Emoji reactions? Oh
Yeah,
man,
hang on. Let's see.
everyone's
We have
slow.
to get I think it might be on a little bit of a delay. Let's see.
Is it on a delay? Right. Maybe they can only react to the actual thing. Reactions. You guys do 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 on that? No, it looks like it's on a delay there. So, all right, 1, 2, 3. Anyway, I'm gonna pick.
Here we go. Here we go. We'll get him. I'll get him. I can have people vote here.
Which one's your favorite, Bill?
Well, I think my favorite on this one is probably number 4 because her hair is epic. It's a great composition, and yeah, I like number 4. I think. Yeah.
I think number 4 is great as well, right? So what we do then is we take 1, 2, 3, 4, number 2, 3, and 6, and then we can go to we have the same seed, but we pick someone else, right? So we go to Jennifer Lawrence.
So you see what happens there, folks? Yeah, it's amazing. Composition, the pose, and the concept, the framing, things stay the same because the seed and the adjustment of Jennifer Lawrence changes the character. It's incredible. Really fantastic, incredible power in terms of the next steps of like where we're going with this as a creative tool.
Yeah, because you need to have that kind of compositional control to be able to adjust it. And instead we could have taken the 6th one. And again, it would kind of have interpreted it then. So we'll see is kind of about there, similar kind of thing. Did I pick the right one? I didn't pick the right one. Anyway, you'll kind of see variations in here. This shield is rather big. Again, future versions, you'll be able to say, I want that shield smaller, and it'll get smaller. This is also, as you see, pretty raw output. So if you want to have the highest quality compositions like the ones you see, you should really get to know the artist studies and some of the other things. Who are the best photographers, the best painters, the best styles? Because that will give you amazing outputs relative to if you just chuck in specific words here, just basic words here, right, Bill?
Yeah. So, and I think it's still experimental. We're putting together studies to find out and figuring out and so on. And we welcome folks who are interested in, contributing to the community in a productive and constructive way, and who want to, be part of the, the kind of crowdsourcing that I think made all this happen to begin with. I think we're a group of crowdsourced collaborators in a lot of ways. It's fantastic. So the community is a huge part of this.
Yeah. So the people saying, can we just use the bot? Look, it's difficult, right? It's difficult getting things up and running when we are not bot experts. This is not what we do. We're trying to make it available to you. The developers are working as hard as they can. What's happening right now is we're actually trying to get the last features in. This model that you see right now was completed at 1 a.m. yesterday night. Because we wanted to make sure the beta testers had the very latest and greatest, as it were. It still hasn't finished training. It still isn't kind of quite done yet. And so I think those of you who followed the Stable Diffusion hashtag, you've seen it consistently improving and getting better and better and better. But we didn't want to release something half-assed to you and kind of let you use it. Instead, we wanted to have something that's nearly ready and nearly done. And you can see it does a lot. This is unlike any other model that's ever been seen without the amendments. When this goes into Midjourney, you will see amazing things. When it gets used by people to do in-painting and beyond, all of the little errors that you might see here, the little edges, they won't be there anymore. Because again, this is raw, unfiltered output. And just think how amazing it is that now we can type this in and we can see it occur kind of within seconds. Oops, there is a pop-up. Yeah, we've got the Labrador in a duffel coat, right? And
yeah,
we can optimize this. So what we can do is we can go minus S10, right? So we can say, let's do 10 steps on that. And what happens when you do S10? 1 second. In 1 second, you can generate this. This isn't actually fully optimized. We can get it below that if we really wanted to. You see it hasn't got a duffel coat though. If you instead did Labrador in that, and you did 20, oops, no, sorry, apologies. You did 20 seconds. Oh, look, there we go. A little Labrador in a duffel coat. Oh, look at that little duffel coat, right? Experiment and see. You can kind of see the same thing with different steps has this. And again, this is the type of thing that we want to explore and want to have. And as you can see, this is why with this Discord bot, we added extra things there for that purpose. I think, the final thing I probably mentioned is CFG scale, right?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll talk about that quickly. So if you want to, oh, sorry, actually, one thing important to mention is dream minus minus or dream help. Or is it? No, it's minus minus h, sorry. Let's not do an error. Dream minus h gives you all of the different things here. So we've talked through most of these, and then there are a couple of super advanced ones. One is CFG scale, so that's classifier free guidance scale. What that means is that when you use models like Midjourney, Wombo, a bunch of others, like I said, there's two models. There's a model that generates and there's a model that guides, known as kind of clip, and then diffusion models. These models, we've actually combined the two together, so that's why you get the speed advancements, and this isn't fully optimized, so we'll get even faster. What CFG scale is how like your actual image, so your actual prompt, the images. So if you go to kind of CFG scale 10 on Mr. Labrador, but now it's C. So again, this is so new that even I don't know what the latest things are. What's it now? CFG scale, is it?
Oh, it's yeah, CFG underscore scale. That's what the most recent one is. I think. Oh, I think one of our architects is joining the chat. I love it.
Okay. Well, it looks like CFG scale is an unrecognized thing. Okay, double hyphen. Thanks, Tim. Like I said, live debugging. What can you have there? We have the cute Labrador in the kind of duffel coat. As you kind of increase it, again, you will get very different things. So we've got CFG scale kind of 10 for that. If we take the same seed, and then we do a CFG scale of 7, and we do a CFG scale of 12, you'll see each time it's subtly different. So with this, you can do different variations. Look, it's a happy dog. Happy. And so
Love it.
So, that's because what it's doing is it's saying to the internals of this, guide it towards the text prompt more and more. And so 7 is the default, and we found that's correct. If you want it a bit more creative, you go down to 5. If you want it to be more exact, you go up to 12. But you can see it's a bit cooked there. So his mouth is a bit cooked, and it's a little more bright and vibrant compared to before, right? So, yeah, Shadow, it goes down to negative. So you can do negative as well. So again, look, experiment with this. This is meant to be a beta. It's meant to be experimenting. And we want to see the things in the feedback as well. Please do give as much feedback as you can about how this compares to others, what you like, what you don't like, all these kind of things you've done. The final part here is sampler. Sampler is the type of stepping that you have. So if you kind of look above, you see DDIM. That was what was in classical models before, and that was 100 to 250. Right now, I believe we're using KLMS as the kind of key thing. We will post some academic articles for those of you who want to dig into it on how these things work. But you can feel free to, again, experiment with these. But they're quite advanced, so I would leave that maybe to the power users rather than kind of stepping through. I think everyone right now is kind of eager to kind of get on with the bot. You can see the bot's being deployed to the server. We're doing some additional tests now before we open it up, because we want to make sure that the architecture and everything is going on. So in the private chats right now, it is being tested. Again, those of you who joined late, if you don't want to listen in now, you will get an app message when your kind of group is ready to go. So you don't have to stay around. But I think, Bill, is there anything else you want to say, or should I go into kind of an AMA and answer any questions that people might have?
Well, I mean, I think the last thing I would want to say to folks who are going to go off and work with this is, have fun and bring beautiful things into the world. That duffel coat made me so incredibly happy because that was a request from somebody who came into the server early, and that is Sid Deuce. Sid Deuce is the legend who brought the duffel coated Labrador into my life. I'm thrilled to bring it into your life. So, yeah, so that's what I would say. Thanks, everyone.
So I think, when it comes to these feature things, we can't commit to anything because, again, like we're not building a competitor to MJ, right? Midjourney's done a fantastically ridiculous job scaling to 1 million people. Like even 10,000 is kind of difficult for us to even imagine. They're at the start, kind of helping out. Some of our developers have helped out as well, and we're really proud of you guys. I think that multi-prompting, though, is something that's capable of this model, and I think it's something that will be there. I think it's probably best in a web interface versus a Discord one. But like I said, I think the only thing that we can't really commit to any features for this Discord bot because it's not really a product, it's more a testing thing, but we would want people to test these different variations and have as much depth as possible in there for the model and the other ones that we have coming as well. So the way that tokenizers work is that the stuff at the start of the prompt will actually get a bit more weight than previous. And you can also do multiple words in a prompt and it'll actually have a slightly different thing. So you can literally do Labrador, 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 Labrador. But right now, like I said, this is super raw. So there's no prompt engineering on the way in, there's no prompt engineering on the way out, there's no kind of classical cut stuff or anything like that. We are updating Disco Diffusion, Majesty Diffusion, and all the others. Again, members of the Stability team are some of the authors there, just as Midjourney has some of the authors there, to be able to have that more fine-grained control, as well as having kind of other interfaces for the more professional kind of individuals out there. Because we really want to, again, build for the community, the building blocks that people can take and extend and have that extra experience. But right now, you'll find the order does matter due to the way the token is, but not the same as you said, the weighting, where you can go and you can weight something 0 or even negative. But obviously, as it gets released, more and more people will include that because it's really useful. Like if you do a Suka Langley, nice Evangelion character, often she will look like the wrestler. You don't want the wrestler, You want to have the tsundere kind of person. Anyway. So the way that this works is this is basically a compressed file from 250 terabytes down to X gigabytes. Again, we'll release the full details when the model's finalized because it's still in shift. Learning from the prompts is basically, and seeing kind of the things, that we had a previous thing. If someone can post the Simulacra bot aesthetic captions in the chat, when the alpha testers were kind of testing, they rated the images originally. Like, we don't need you to rate the images. We want a more overall view on the feedback. To create a massive data set of how good the images are. You see that in Midjourney as well with the happy and the sad faces, etc. What happens is that you take that data and then you adjust and fine-tune the model, and then it becomes model 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3. What we're going to be releasing is Stable Diffusion as kind of this base framework model on which people can fine-tune and adjust and do other things. So part of this process that we actually had for it was taking some of those ratings and teaching it, but it's not going to be a consistently learning model because, again, we're packaging this up as almost like a framework that other people can take and extend. You see that with a lot of these collabs and other notebooks where you can take your images and adjust them. And again, there's been some fantastic community work around this to have different models for different things there. So again, this isn't a full end-to-end service. This is just that core super-duper brain in a jar in the middle. And you get to basically talk directly to the brain here.
So we fine-tune it using CFG scales or steps.
Yeah, it's not fine-tuning. It's more kind of giving it different instructions. But what will happen is that when this gets integrated into other platforms, they will have that feedback loop of better images, then create version 1.1 of their own version of this model, and 1.3 and 1.3. Whereas this model, you can come back in a year and give it the same input with these CFG things, and you'll get the same output. Well, slightly different, but almost the same. Slightly different is because there are some randomized elements in this. But you can have that fine-tuned control where you know the output will be the same later on because the actual underlying model doesn't change. The brain stays the same.